Grab your champagne, check out the ball. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the special episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast. We watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. I'm Bob.
And I'm Ben.
Ben, Happy New Year. Happy 2025.
It can't be worse than last year.
Shut up. You can't start cursing the year before we record. Stop. Something bad's gonna happen. It's all gonna be your fault.
Well, something bad's gonna happen, of course.
Yeah, and it'll all be your fault.
We're on the planet Earth. Bad things happen here.
All the time.
Anyways, are you excited for our New Year's movie?
I'm excited for our New Year's movie and for the new year. Do you have any plans for New Year's, Ben? You doing anything?
Usually, I don't have any plans going forward. Normally, I buy some champagne and drink that, and then watch When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
That's
I
my
didn't know if your
New Year's movie.
I didn't know if your roommates had any plans or anything. Because I know for Halloween they threw a party. I didn't know if they were throwing a party again.
I don't think they're throwing a party. Normally, we'll hang out for New Year's and stuff, but I assume they're gonna hang out with their girlfriends this year. That's what I guess.
I was just wondering because we didn't hang out on New Year's last year, did we?
No.
Because I don't know what I did last year for New Year's. I did something. I don't remember.
I don't know. New Year's is one of those, it's one of those holidays that I think is fun to celebrate when you have a significant other.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then otherwise, it's just whatever.
Or you go out with your friends or something.
To a bar.
Yeah. Which, I mean, this year I'm doing stuff with my girlfriend because her parents are throwing a house party and she wants me to go. So,
See?
No, it sucks because normally all my friends will do stuff for New Year's. But this year, a lot of them have to work New Year's Eve. So they can't do anything New Year's Eve, but that's the day I have off. And I work New Year's Day, the night of it.
Yeah.
So
also, why would you want New Year's Day off? Because that's just the first.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
A lot of people have it off, apparently.
I guess because most people don't work third shift like we do.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to work that night. So it's they made plans for something and I can't go and I'm mad about it. It sucks. But I am excited about this movie because last year we watched New Year's Evil, which not
New Year's Evil!
I was going to say, not a good movie. Banging theme song.
It was a banging theme song.
Year before that, we watched Terror Train. Not a good movie. Very quotable movie.
They must have got them both.
Oh, God. And also, very, very funny Lizard Man. I don't know if
Funny
funny is the word I would
It's not the
used,
word I
but
would have used.
Lizard Man on a train, if that,
Maybe sexual deviant,
Okay. I wasn't going to say that, but sure.
right? Doesn't he
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's making sure it's the right movie.
But I'm excited because,
There's a lot of magic in that movie.
there is a lot of magic in that movie. There is a magician.
And the conductor who does casual magic.
Anyway, like I was trying to say, I'm excited about this movie because maybe it'll be good. Maybe we'll finally watch a good New Year's movie for the podcast, Ben.
Maybe.
Ben, what are we watching today?
Today we're watching a movie from 1999.
1999, good year.
Which I've never seen before, but I think that technically makes it a Y2K film, right?
I don't know.
Because 1999, all New Year's films around that era
Okay.
were Y2K stuff.
That makes
'cause
sense.
It was big. And it's called End of Days.
Oh.
You've never heard about this?
No, I have no idea what this movie is.
That's fair. For my description, I just said, this seems thematically relevant.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Man, it's not the end of days yet. They may be fast approaching, but we haven't hit them.
For length, it's 2 hours and 2 minutes long.
There's no way you picked a 2-hour movie for New Year's.
Well, I didn't realize we were going to be recording it at 6 a.m. after work.
You son of a bitch.
It's rated R.
Oh, thank God.
Review scores, IMDb gave it a 5.8 out of 10.
That's not bad.
Tomato meter score of 11%.
Oh, not the 11%.
An audience score of 33%.
No.
A meta score of 34%.
Ben, I said I wanted to watch a good movie.
And a user score of 6.2 out of 10.
The 6 point... Okay, well, hold on. The 6.2 out of 10.
Which is kind of close to the IMDb score.
Yeah.
So it might be okay.
Okay. But 2 hours of okay isn't great. Fuck.
I don't know what to tell you.
Why have you done this to us?
It seemed thematically relevant.
It is thematic real. Sorry, I'm fucking seething right now.
For awards, it has 1 win and 7 nominations.
Oh, that's more than I thought.
And let's get into notable actors. Now, this film is starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
There's no fucking way you did that.
Which is why I said it felt thematically relevant.
There's no way. You put this here instead of using it in his category?
Yeah.
You're fucking crazy, dog. Oh my god.
I thought it'd be funny.
It is funny. It's stupid is what it is.
Now, Arnie is playing Detective Jericho Kane. You know, we just talked about this on, as of recording, the last episode we recorded, but he played Jack Slater in Last Action Hero.
Yep.
Which, speaking of which, we just watched Predator
yeah.
for the podcast. Good movie.
Good movie.
Check that episode out. Next, we have Gabriel Byron as the Man. He played Keaton in The Usual Suspects. Good movie.
I've heard that movie's good.
I've told you it's good before and that you should watch it before it gets spoiled for you. I assume you haven't watched it.
No, is it a horror movie?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I might watch it. Oh, you know what? I'll get my girlfriend's dad to watch it with me.
Why not your girlfriend to watch it with you?
Well, because she doesn't like to watch movies that much.
Oh, that's fair.
Her dad does.
It's really good, but avoid having spoilers for that film. So if the dad goes, "Oh, you haven't seen The Usual Suspects," you gotta go, "No."
That's exactly what I was planning on doing.
Don't say shit about it.
We're gonna
Just
watch it right now.
Yeah, that's one of those films I always recommend to watch blind. That with like The Sixth Sense.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
I hate that I've had The Sixth Sense ruined for me.
Oh, when I was originally telling you to go watch that when we were like first friends, you hadn't had it spoiled yet, and I think like a couple weeks after, when you're like, "I'm gonna go watch it,"
I was on
spoiled.
Twitter, and the end of the movie was just spoiled.
Yeah, that one's the really famous, like easily spoiled one.
Well, I mean, because that's like the first big M. Night film with a big twist at the end, right? That's where like the M. Night twist comes from. Is like that film.
I mean, all those films are kind of like that, but that's the most famous.
That's
one.
what I'm saying. That's the one that made it like a sort of cultural thing.
Yeah. With that being said, if you haven't seen Usual Suspects, go watch it. Next, we have Robin Tooney as Christine York. We've seen her before on this podcast.
I was about to say, the name sounds really familiar.
Do you recognize where from?
No, I know the name, but I don't know where
She
from.
was Sarah Bailey in The Craft.
Oh!
So I believe that's the main character of that film.
That's cool.
The one who uses her magic to make an obsessed stalker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just like...
kills him. Well, she doesn't kill him.
Just
but...
leave him like that.
Yeah.
Kevin Pollak as Bobby Chicago. He was Hockney in The Usual Suspects, so another Usual Suspects actor. CCH Pounder as Detective Marge Francis. She played Detective Claudette Wims from The Shield. She was on 88 episodes between 2002 and 2008.
I've never watched The Shield, but I've heard it's good.
Not to be confused with Agents of Shield.
No, I know what you're
show.
talking. Yeah.
I just thought I'd put that out there. We have Derek O'Connor as Thomas Aquinas. He was Captain Atherton in Deep Rising, which I really like that film. We've talked about it before.
Ocean movie?
It's an ocean movie, which is usually a turnoff for you. But the way I describe it is it's kind of like a pulp action adventure film in the same vein as The Mummy.
Oh.
But just at sea.
That's kind of cool. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I think it's done by the same director. Is it the same director as The Mummy?
I have no idea.
Yes, it is. Stephen Sommers.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
It feels very similar. Same guy did like Van Helsing.
Mhm.
I think he did Scorpion King, the movie,
Yeah.
which is fun. I like the Scorpion King.
The original one.
Yes.
Not all the
I
sequels.
haven't seen the sequels yet.
We'll get there.
We're slowly going through them with my friends, and once we cover The Mummy again, I have all the Scorpion King films.
That sounds so just unfun.
There's only like 4 or 5.
That's a lot, Ben.
And the Rock's only in the first one.
Oh my god.
Next, we have Miriam Margolyes as Mabel. She was actually very famous British actress, so I feel bad about getting her name wrong. But yeah, very, very famous for doing a bunch of British stuff, like TV shows and movies.
Okay.
However, like, you know, American audiences aren't really familiar with that. There is one big role that I think you would be familiar with, though. She plays Professor Pomona Sprout in the Harry Potter franchise.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Next, we have Udo Kier as Dr. Abel. We have also seen this guy before.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
I believe last time I mentioned he was very popular for playing Hitlers in TV shows.
Yep.
But
Now
he
I
played
remember.
Morgan Walker in Halloween, the
Yeah.
Rob Zombie one.
Now I know what you're talking about.
Next, we have Mark Margolis as Pope. He was Mr. Rabinowitz in Requiem for a Dream.
I've heard that movie's really good.
Yes. Rod Steiger as Father Kovac. He was Chief Bill Gillespie in the Heat of the Night. Mark Lawrence as Old Man. He was a Slumber Inc. attendant in Diamonds Are Forever. Renee Olstead as Amy Kane. She was Jess in Unfriended, which is a horror film in, I believe it's the real life genre.
Is that what that's called?
I believe it's a subgenre of like found footage.
Mm-hmm.
When I did my found footage like paper, I had a section about it.
I've heard those movies aren't great.
Yeah, the screen capture ones.
Yeah.
It's an interesting format style, and from what I found, it's very cheap to shoot,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely very gimmicky.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like it, but it's kind of cool to see. There's one or two films in that genre that I do think are actually pretty cool.
We'll get
but
to it.
I don't necessarily like all of them. And then finally, we have Mo Galini as Monk, not to be confused with the TV character.
Monk.
But he played Boris in The Outlaws.
A lot of people in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of famous people in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big budget action film from 1999.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of which, I'll just say now, budget was estimated at $100 million.
$100 million.
Yeah. Well, it did do amazing. It did make back its money, so it got $211.9 million.
It did what it needed to.
Yeah, I think it's considered kind of a flop because it underperformed for what they expected.
Mm-hmm.
But, you look at that and it's like, oh.
It flopped, but it did not flop in the way that many other films flop.
Exactly. So, broke even. That's kind of cool. And I think it did better internationally. I think that's where it made up its money.
That's interesting.
That happens a lot.
I'm just curious what, like, an international audience sort of, like, took away that an American audience didn't. You know what I mean?
I think there's just less fare available.
That makes sense.
It has to be big enough to get, like, subtitles or
redubbed in a certain language.
Yeah. Anyways, director, we'll go back to this. It's Peter Hyams. He also directed 2010, The Year We Made Contact, which is the sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Whoa, that's cool.
You didn't know that.
I did not know that.
And then the writer's Andrew W. Marlowe. He wrote Hollow Man, which is the 2000s adaptation of The Invisible Man.
Wow.
That's the one that has Kevin Bacon in it.
Oh,
as the Invisible Man.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's one of those things where I don't really think any of the adaptations, the modern adaptations of Invisible Man, are great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they can be good movies, independent of everything else, but, like, it's hard to get the spirit
of the movie.
Of the original, yeah.
I mean, the original is just so good.
Oh,
like,
it is.
And that is what I think sort of, the bar is so high, you know? And that's the problem.
Yep. Plus, it's like peak Mad Scientist.
Oh, it's so good.
Anyways, country of origin, United States. Tagline, the ultimate battle of good versus evil.
That's such a bad tagline.
It's whatever, yeah. As for facts,
God.
There's going to be kind of like a theme here that you're going to notice.
Okay.
So, first of all, directors Sam Raimi and Guillermo del Toro were offered End of Days.
Whoa, that's cool.
But they did turn it down due to other projects. And so they ended up settling on Marcus Nispel, who was going to direct the film, but he actually ended up leaving as well because of budget and script problems, and so was replaced by the current director, Peter Hyams. In a similar vein, the role of Jericho Kane was originally written for a different actor, specifically Tom Cruise.
Whoa!
But he chose to work on Magnolia, and instead, Arnold Schwarzenegger was cast as the lead actor. And apparently he got paid a bunch of money to do this. I think the quote I saw somewhere was like 25 million.
I want to put this out there. If they were going to hire Tom Cruise, they had to have had a bunch of money. So they probably just went, well, I mean, this is the guy replacing him. Let's give him all this money.
It's a quarter of the budget was spent on Arnie.
Which, it's also Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, yeah.
I know.
You're going to spend that money.
But, oh my God.
No, that's a lot of money, man.
And then, my final fact. Liv Tyler was the first choice for the role of Christine York, the leading lady.
Oh my God.
She, of course, declined due to contractual issues.
Nobody wanted to be in this movie.
Instead, Kate Winslet was then set to play the character, but she dropped out as well. And so we ended up with Robin Tooney, who replaced her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there was a theme going on. And so I do have to wonder, like, how much of how this movie turned out
is because people said no.
Is because multiple people said no. because, like, again, I haven't seen this film,
I haven't seen this either.
but I imagine it would have been very different if it was shot by Sam Raimi
or Del Toro.
or Del Toro.
I'm assuming this is an end of the world apocalypse movie, right? Probably.
Not going to tell you.
Yeah. A Del Toro film like that? That sounds like fun. That sounds so good.
Yeah, so it ended up probably very different from how it was originally envisioned.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, especially switching directors too, like that's crazy.
Well, directors, but also like there's a big difference between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Cruise.
Yeah, the two very different actors with very different strengths.
Because they have very different like roles and how they play them.
Yeah, for sure. But I am excited. I know the low scores like kind of seem scary, but I think it'll be fun.
To me, it looks like it might be one of those films where you either really like it
or you really hate it.
Yep.
I hope you like it because it's 2 hours long, Ben.
I hope you like it because it's 2 hours long.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, we'll see you guys in a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching End of Days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I liked it. I thought it was fun.
Okay. I'm glad you liked it.
Did you like it?
I have some issues with it,
That's fair.
but I do think it was fun.
Yeah.
I can definitely kind of see the IMDb rating
Mm-hmm.
being pretty accurate. The what 5.8?
Yeah.
Something like that. I think that's a good rating.
It's I would say honestly that's a little low.
I don't know. I can also get some of the really low ones we saw. Not that I necessarily agree with them, but I can understand that.
I can see some of them too, but I think overall it was a lot better than I expected going in.
That's
right?
fair.
I think you're probably in the same boat. Like I feel like we both had really low expectations, and the fact that we laughed quite a lot and thought it was fun is a good sign.
Fair enough. I guess with that being said, usual spiel. We're going to do some spoilers and stuff, so we highly recommend you go watch it blind if you can. That's the best way to experience all these movies. With that being said, I'm going to give a brief rundown, and then we'll get into actual spoilers. I tried to avoid saying a lot about this film in like our pre-movie, so probably haven't mentioned a lot here, but if you don't know, this film is like a Y2K Antichrist film.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that like what's that film with Damien?
The Omen?
Yeah, it's not like an Antichrist film in the same way
The
Omen is.
I would say it's similar to something
that's
like
about the Antichrist.
The Prince of Darkness, maybe?
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, it's about Satan trying to make the Antichrist, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, also known as Jericho Kane, trying to stop it. And if that sounds good, I mean,
It's cool.
it's fun. With that being said, we are going to get into it now. So, anything you'd like to start off with, or do you want me to go first?
You go, because I think I'm going to put this here now. I liked it more than you did, so I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Okay. First thing off the bat, because once I learned about this fact, I thought it was fairly obvious, but I could tell that the part of Jericho Kane was written for Tom Cruise. I think the part that it really shined through with that were some of the action scenes, because they looked straight out of
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. The most obvious one is there's a scene where Jericho Kane hangs from a helicopter and picks up a dude. It's just it just had Tom Cruise written all over it. It
screams Tom Cruise, right?
And once I started paying attention to it, I think explicitly after that scene, I started to pick up on it more. Like there's a lot of dialogue and like character interaction moments that feel like they were written for Tom Cruise. And the reason I bring it up here is I don't think it worked exactly very well for Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not a bad actor. I like him in a lot of films, and he handles the more action and like one-liner parts of this film very, very well. But I thought some of those more like emotional moments were a little bit rough with him, just because like of his delivery and stuff. Not saying they were ruined or anything, but it was one of those parts of the film where I could tell that it was suffering from some of the, I don't want to call it recasting, but some of the casting issues. And, that's kind of how I felt about a lot of this movie, with like certain choices where I was like, I wasn't super bothered with a lot, but, there were certain things with the lead actress where I could tell it wasn't written for her in the same way The Craft, where she fits that role really well. Or, I don't know, some of the directing stuff. Like, there were some parts that I looked at and I was like, oh, if this was done by Del Toro, like the cinematography would have been really, really great with all these religious undertones and stuff. I mean, in fact, they have a bunch of sequences in the subway system.
Yeah.
And it's very reminiscent of Mimic. And I was kind of like, oh, if Del Toro did this, or like, there's a lot of fun parts in this movie where I watch them and I go, oh, Sam Raimi would be great for the comedy elements here. I guess it's one of those films where after realizing there was a bunch of casting stuff and like scheduling issues, I look at it for what it could have been, and I'm like, okay, this could have been a much better film. But I do want to say, for those issues, I think the film we got was pretty good, all things considered.
No, I agree.
It's definitely not a masterpiece.
No, not at all.
But it is a fun, kind of stupid, Satanist-like action film.
Yeah.
And it knows exactly what it's going for, and it does it. Like, it has all the classic one-liners and quotes that are really good. Senseless explosions.
The explosions are insane in this movie.
I think they just leaned into it really well. And
Yeah.
I think for what they had, they did a decent job. Nothing to write home about, but decent.
I think I want to go back to your whole point about Tom Cruise and Arnold. I think I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm not trying to be a contrarian because I feel like I do that sometimes, but I disagree with you really heavily, actually. I think Arnold fits it better than Tom Cruise would have, mostly because there's a particular scene that I want to talk about while we're on this topic. There's a moment where, of course, spoilers for the movie, Satan is talking to Jericho, and he's trying to convince him to like side with him. And just that scene alone, I think Arnold is like a much better choice.
Really?
Yes.
Because that's the scene I was thinking about where Tom Cruise would be a better
Really?
choice.
Because I don't envision Tom Cruise to fit the way Jericho's written or portrayed in this movie. Like an angry ex-cop who's been wronged and has like a drinking problem and like is dealing with all these things and fighting all these like inner demons. That doesn't scream Tom Cruise, but I think Arnold looks and fits the part very well.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to one of those things where they had to change the actor, and they adapted to that. I think the director did a good job directing Arnie in this role. But it's one of those things where, like, I look at that scene and I go, oh, this movie was intended to be like a really deep philosophical film, but because we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's like a fun action romp. That's what I look at that scene and see. So, like, I think for how the character is portrayed in the movie as it stands, Arnold Schwarzenegger does a good job in that sequence. But I look at that scene and I'm like, they're trying to go for, like, some deeper messaging, and they really want a more, like, emotional actor.
I don't know. I think the deeper messaging works, though.
No, it works with how the film stands right now. But again, I look at it and I can see what could have been. I guess is my point.
So then let me ask you this. If you're looking at what could have been, how much does that bring down your enjoyment of the film?
It doesn't bring down my enjoyment. I just wanted to mention it because I think it was something that stood out to me. And I know for some people, when you have something like that, where you have a movie and you have multiple moments where you go, oh, I wish they did this, that can ruin it for some people.
That's fair.
So I do think it is worth mentioning.
I was just really curious because, like, while we were watching the movie, you said that, and I was just like, I really disagree completely. Like, I feel like Arnold is very fitting for the role, except for in the moments. I do agree with some of the action sequences that just like you look like you ripped this out of Mission Impossible, and it looks like that should be Tom Cruise. But even in those, I think Arnold does a good job.
Yeah, I don't know. Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of those actors where I really like him in fun action films, but outside of that, I think he struggles in certain ways. With that being said, other parts of this movie I think were also pretty decent. One of the most like great but debatable parts of this movie were the special effects sequences.
Yeah.
I think you summarized it the best when we got to the end of the film. You were like, this movie really looks like it spent $100 million.
Yes, it does.
And you're right. It looks very expensive because they're just over the top all the time.
They're breaking shit, blowing stuff up, shooting at each other, like hordes of people, giant sets, really epic, like cinematography.
And more importantly, there's some sequences that are very expensive for when this film was made because they're using like heavy CGI and a lot of like digital effects. And so the thing I want to say here is like, I really like the spectacle.
It's cool.
But I don't always think it looks good or makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of those things where for an action film, you want it to not only look good, but to make sense. And so, I don't know, it took me out of some of the action sequences.
Like what? I'm curious what you thought didn't make sense.
Well, first of all, it tended to lean really hard into the explosions.
There are a lot of explosions, I will admit.
I think sometimes it was a little over the top.
Fair.
But the one that really gets me is mostly the CGI stuff, because
the CGI, I will agree, is a bit egregious, but while I don't think it looks good, I will stand by it looks cool.
That's fair. It does look cool. And, you know, I'll jump back to the explosion stuff here. I think it was cool because they have a Satan motif with, like, fire.
That's what I was going to bring up, is I really like that. I think it works.
But, yeah, every time they switch to CGI, because it was mostly made for touch-up sequences, and I noted it especially when they were doing fire on touch-up sequences, and I think it probably looked good for 1999, but it just does not stand up.
Honest
anymore.
to God, I forgot this movie came out in 1999 until like just now. It looks good for 1999.
Yeah, and it looks good for the time period it came out in, but it's just, for me, it kind of got in the way of certain sequences. The one that really stands out to me is there's a point where they destroy a subway car.
Oh, yeah.
And when it explodes, there's a lot of like CGI fire and stuff, and just that whole sequence like looked fake, I guess. And, you know, that's a hard part about watching older films. The big, though, issue is during the final sequence, they have a CGI monster, we'll put it that way, and it does not look good.
It is really bad.
The design's okay.
The design is fine.
It does
but
not look
But
good.
even the design is like generic demon. You know what I mean? Like, it reminds me of a demon prince from Warhammer 40K, which, not that you understand that, or
I mean,
the
that's
audience
generic
gets it.
for you, but that's pretty inventive for Satan film.
I guess. I don't know. It
'Cause
kind of
usually-
reminds me of the Balrog,
Yeah,
which
but
doesn't feel creative.
normally they go with, like, guy with horns or something.
Sure. I guess if that's what you were basing it on, then that is. But, like, I don't know. It felt like I can imagine a Magic the Gathering card that just says, like, demon on it, and that's what it looks like. It felt very meh when I think that, well, I haven't talked about it. The dude that plays the embodiment of Satan in this film does a really good job, and I would have preferred if just he was the final monster thing.
Yeah.
It would have been cooler.
So I don't know. Kind of one of those big reveal things that did.
I don't think it works, yeah.
I do think it was a nice switch up. But
It was cool, but we had spent so long.
It feels the same kind of level of The Rock in The Mummy 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where it's a late act bad guy and it just doesn't look good.
Yeah. I think that my big complaint is, like, we spent so much time with the dude that plays Satan in this movie. Just let him keep doing it because he does a good job. You know what I mean? Like, I get wanting to switch it up and make it different, but, like, I think he does too good of a job to just be like, let's do a CGI monster at this.
Yeah, he does do a great job. And he plays Satan as just this very, I don't know, charismatic yet, like, insanely threatening dude. And honestly, one of my favorite parts of the film is just how strong Satan is portrayed as. Like,
he's crazy, dog.
The peak of it is at one point in time, he just punches his fist through a guy's head.
And it explodes.
And it's great. And that's just kind of how he is. And I get keeping with that actor through the whole film. And I really like that they committed to, like, okay, this guy is our Satan actor. But I think the decision to switch up at the end was well earned. Because there was a good reason for Satan to switch up at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It works with with the context of the movie. I'm just unsure of how much I like that choice. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. And I think it comes down to the CGI, which made that choice not work. Which I think is a good jumping off point for, you know, we were watching the intro credits, and apparently Stan Winston did the effects
in this movie, which makes sense.
And very thematically relevant, because we just saw him do
Predator.
the effects for Predator, which was what? How many years before this?
12.
12? And it's one of those weird things where it's like, I really like Stan Winston. I think he does a really good job with like practical effects stuff, but I don't necessarily think he was super well utilized in this film.
No, I don't think so either.
Uh,
But what we do get from him is really good.
yeah, all the blood and gore stuff we do get is great, but most of the deaths are, again, fire and explosions.
Yep.
And then that's kind of it. There's only a couple kills that are like creative, like the head punch.
The head punch is good.
And I think that's kind of
It
frustrating.
It sucks, yeah. It's really upsetting. But I think that comes from an issue of this movie is set in the modern day, and a lot of the time it's in New York City. There's people just shooting each other, and that you can get kind of creative, but there's so many things you can't do, you know?
I guess. I think it's an issue of this being an action film first.
Which is where I think the guns come in, right? Action movie, explosions, guns. You know what I mean? And I kind of wish it had leaned more into like the, I don't know, kind of culty, sacrificey aspect of like Satan. And we had gotten more like, I don't know, drawn out intimate deaths, and it had been more of a horror movie. Because like, I would say this is a horror movie, but it's not like, it's more an action movie than it is horror, but the horror elements are still there and work.
Yeah, and for me, that's kind of the lead into my biggest problem with this film, where there's just so much padding in this movie. It's very long. It's 2 hours and 2 minutes long or whatever. So probably, an hour 50, something like that of actual playtime. And I don't know, like the first hour of it is just set up for the actual movie.
Yeah.
And then the back half is a lot of just the characters trying to figure out what's happening in the moment. And I don't have a problem with that style of plot for a film. My problem is that it's 2 hours of that style of film, when I think it would have worked better as like a more concise hour and a half film. And I think the big point where it really stood out was with Satan, where I think he was very, very menacing, and I really liked his portrayal. But there was a lot of sequences where he just kind of walked around and didn't do a lot, and I think they could have made those either more concise or had him just like killing people during those sequences, which would have been great because we would have gotten like more creative
Blood,
kills.
gore, and
Because
guts,
like I
yeah.
said, favorite part of the movie is whenever he actually like
Just fights people and kills
fights
them.
people and not like blow them up or something. What else is in this film that's interesting? It's very sexual. I
Yeah.
think we should bring that up because you said it made you kind of uncomfortable.
But it made me extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, Satan's he's hypersexual, which I think is honestly a pretty decent portrayal for I have to get the mother of the Antichrist pregnant style of film. It's fun to see as him being like this super suave evil dude. But there's just like a ton of stuff that's super, I guess the best word is rapey in this movie.
Yes.
And just kind of uncomfortable, I
Well,
think.
because that's the whole plot of the film. He's going to rape this woman and make her have the Antichrist, which is like kind of an insane thing to say.
Yeah, but it's also more like she was definitely groomed for it.
Well, yeah, that was the point of the whole Church of Satan, the cult that we've been watching this whole film.
So it's definitely like worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. That's the point. It's an awful, awful thing. And anytime it becomes close to happening, I was squirming. I can't stand shit like that in movies.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring that up because, like, I know for some people they do have issues with that. You know, Bob has an issue with that, and it's a very, very big part of this movie.
It's the main plot point.
And so if that makes you uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable for especially the back half of this film.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
even before, like, our lead female actress shows up, we get that with other random female
Women,
characters. So that is something to be aware of. I think last thing for me is, you know, there's this whole background with the Catholic Church and like this prophecy. And when I compare it to other films in like a similar vein, like The Omen or The Exorcist, I don't think it works as well.
Really?
Yeah, it was interesting, but I don't think there was enough, I don't want to say depth, but enough heart to make it feel like real and a very impactful part of the story. It kind of just seemed like weird flair. Like at one point, Jericho ends up in like an exorcism basement, and I'm like, okay, this is something. And it really wasn't a big plot point ever again. And there's a ton of like weird exposition stuff like that. Like there's an order of knights that appears for 5 seconds, and it's just like, oh. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is like, I like the whole idea of a prophecy that Jericho has to stop and stuff, but I wish it was executed better.
I think
guess.
that's interesting. Because honestly, I didn't have a problem with any of that stuff. I thought it was fine.
Oh no, this is me being nitpicky. Like it was fine.
I think the reason, well, okay, let me put it this way. I think the reason it works for me is because I think I've officially decided, Bob, right now. This movie is not like, it is about the Antichrist, but it's not about the church. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I get what you're saying. But I wish if they were going to include the elements they did, it should have been a movie about the church.
But I think then that removes a lot of what you're getting from Jericho. And
No,
you lose a lot of characterization there.
It would have. And so I think they should have made the decision to cut more of the church stuff.
But I like that church stuff. Because I think it adds elements of realism to the world and makes the story fit the context of the universe better.
It does. And I will say I like the elements with the church in New York. With the specific priest who works there, but all the stuff with like the outside, like the Vatican and stuff like that, there's just too much.
Really? There's like nothing.
If they're gonna make this a film about Jericho and his interactions with this like prophecy, there's too much like just Vatican and just like random priest stuff going on. I think it should have been more of a background element to this film than what we got.
I don't know, man. I actually really like it. I think what it really does for me is if I were to watch this film and that stuff is not included, I think it loses a lot of the like background setup stuff that I think it needs. Because if it doesn't have it, then I think a lot of the context gets lost in the sauce. You know what I mean?
I guess. And I'm not saying to get rid of it entirely, but I compare what we get to, again, The Omen or Prince of Darkness or, you know, any of the other like weird satanic films we've watched, and I look at what we have in this film and I'm like, it doesn't do it for me in the same way those films do, and so I wish there was either more or less, and I think it could have done either or, but what we got was in some ways too little but too much.
Interesting.
Oh, and by the way, I think I should mention this before we stop. Jericho's definitely like a Jesus analogy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you picked up on it. Satan makes a line that like Jesus did the exact same thing Jericho does at the end of this movie for the exact same reason. Yeah. And that was so like, to me it felt goofy, but I think that's a cool idea.
I don't think it was goofy. I think it perfectly, I'm not going to repeat myself, but I said in the outtakes, and I think you marked it. It works. I think that's perfectly fine. Like, I think it is an acceptable way to end a movie like this.
No, it is, for this, like, what it was going for. But it was just, like, it was so egregiously written, and it was so in your face that I was just...
But it's an action movie, so that's what you want.
It's just, I think kind of my thing with this film is it's funny because it's written as, like, a film like Prince of Darkness, but it's also just a blatant Arnold Schwarzenegger action film.
Yeah.
And just the dichotomy of those just kind of throws me for a loop. And I can see why that doesn't work well for some people and then works really well for others.
I really liked it. I thought it was
like Bob really liked it because he was just watching it, I think, as a goofy action film, right? For the most part.
No.
Really?
No, it's like an actual movie, man. I just had fun.
And then yeah, if you're watching this as like a film like The Omen or Prince of Darkness, it's like, what the fuck am I watching? I don't know. It's just an odd film.
You know what we haven't talked about that is, I think, really important for this episode? Why is this our New Year's movie, Ben?
I mentioned it. It's a Y2K film.
Yeah, but like we should explain more because I think that it is an important plot point of the film.
Oh, Satan has to get this girl pregnant on the 31st between 11 and midnight.
He has exactly 1 hour to bang this girl.
And I'm going to be honest. There's a scene that implies all he has to do is kiss her. So I think the banging might just be optional.
I don't know.
I don't know. But
It
that's
doesn't
why it's a New
explain it.
Year film.
But that is why it's our New Year's film.
And
is
then
because,
obviously they mix in a bunch of like Y2K end of the world stuff into the background. But,
yeah.
you know,
We just hadn't talked about it, and it felt weird us like watching this movie and talking about this is our New Year's episode. Why though?
they do some stupid stuff to justify it. At one point they're like, what are the numbers that represent Satan? And they're like 666. No, that's not right. Flip them upside down.
999
for 1999.
Yeah, stupid shit like that.
It was dumb. Anyways, you got anything else?
No.
All right. You want to give it a recommendation?
If you like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think he does a good job. I like him in this movie. If you like action movies, this is a cool action movie. I think it's fun. If you like action horror movies where it's more action than horror, same thing. I think it's super good. If you like the idea of like Satan and Antichrist, I think this is an interesting take on an Antichrist movie, and it's very different than something like The Omen, and I think it works. I enjoy it because it's unique, I guess. But I think those are my recommendations.
Okay. Well, right off the bat, do you enjoy any of the people in this movie? Obviously, we've talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger a lot, but I think Bob has made this point a lot, and I do think it's a good point that Gabriel Byrne, the guy who plays Satan, so they call him the Man, does an amazing job.
Very good.
And Robin Tooney, for as much as I don't think this role really went well for her, I think she does a good job with it. I just didn't like it as much as her performance in The Craft.
That's fair.
But I think she handled it pretty well. And so if you like any of those guys, I think they do a decent job in this film. Otherwise, if you want a stupid action film, this is a stupid action film in the best way. I loved it. Like with all the just random explosions and stuff, it's exactly what you want from that genre. But if you also want like a Y2K kind of end of the world film, this is great. It's such a little time capsule of the 90s. Like at one point, Arnold is wearing these sunglasses and like a jacket, and I'm like, you look so 90s. Like this looks like the Matrix.
Yeah.
Anyways, you want to rate it?
I mean, look, I know Ben says he has a lot of problems with this movie, but I liked it, man. I thought it was really fun. And a lot of your gripes I just don't get, you know? Like I guess I get where you're coming from, but I don't have those same complaints. You know what I mean?
I guess. I think you think I hate this film much more than I do.
No, I don't think you hate it. I just enjoyed it so much more than I think you did.
I mean, that's fair.
So I think I'm going to give it a 4. I like this movie.
That's more than I'm going to give it.
I knew that, but I like it. I think it's really fun. I had a really good time, and while I think it has problems, I think it is way better than I expected it to be coming in. So I think I will give it a 4. I think it's worth it.
No, that's fair. I'm going to go with a 3.
That's fair.
I think it was kind of middle of the road. For all the parts of this film that I think worked really well, I also had some things that I didn't think worked as great. And so I just thought there was a bunch of stuff that evened out, and it just really ended up as like a pretty okay film for me.
Totally fair. Okay. Outtakes?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, see you guys in a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Ben?
Well, hopefully we're going to be working on Evil Dead stuff now.
Hopefully.
I mean, that won't come out for a while, but like
We're going to record them.
hopefully in the background we'll have that to work on. Otherwise, I don't think our next major holiday is until
February. Right?
Yeah.
Valentine's Day?
I think it's Valentine's Day. It's the first one we
And then we
usually
get to do St. Patrick's Day in March.
And then St. Patrick's Day. So that'll be eventually. So until either of those things happen, nothing
Regular
really to
scheduled
announce.
programming?
Yeah, regular schedule. Otherwise, usual spiel. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're checking us out on any of those streaming specific platforms, please leave us a quick rating or review. We really appreciate that because it helps us be seen by more people there. However, if you really want to help out the podcast, you could go recommend it to a friend. Maybe spread the good word.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we're really appreciative of it.
We are, but that was good. It was a good one. You got me.
With that being said, if you want to help the podcast out, you could also check us out on YouTube, which, while not the best for audio-only content, is a great place to show us support. You know, we can see your likes, subscriptions, stuff like that. And it's honestly how me and Bob really keep track of engagement for the show over anything else, because it's just easy.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, YouTube does have a couple cool tools you might be interested in. There's a bell button, which lets you get notified whenever we post something new. So in case you're wondering if we did like a holiday episode or if we did an Evil Dead thing, that's a good way to figure it out, because we don't always announce stuff correctly.
Bad about it.
We?
What do you mean? Yeah, you.
Bob, he handles the Twitter.
Yeah, but you have access.
Anyways, YouTube also has a search function on our subscriber page, you know, that lets you search key terms in all our videos, such as movie titles, which is a good way to see what we've covered and what we haven't, because, you know, we've done like over 170.
I don't know.
We've done a lot of movies at this point.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going. With that being said, big thing with YouTube is it's one of the two major places to communicate with us at. You can do that in the comment section of a specific episode if there's something you want to talk to us about there, or you can go over to Twitter at Beware the Board, which is run solely by Bob, by the way. You can go talk to him about how the prophecy is true and how you would go about mounting guns to your wrists.
We didn't talk about that. I can't believe we didn't talk about that. That's one of my favorite parts of this movie. Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter at Beware the Board. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything you want about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that week's worth of episodes, which is a hidden movie cover you can reveal, so you can watch the film before we do. So when we release the episodes, you don't get any spoilers or being vague about stuff. You know what we're talking about. Then on Fridays, or whatever other day an episode goes live, I always post a link to the episode whenever it goes up. So if you ever miss an upload or don't want someone up, there's always a link on our Twitter. Last thing, we make short form content for the show over on TikTok at Beware the Board and on YouTube Shorts. So if you like short form content and want to support the show, check us out over there at Beware the Board on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. Ben, I think that's it.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the year of our Lord, 2025.